Anyway, so we're about ready to get after it. We're going to tell us a story today. We're going to start getting a little bit more into it, let's say. So I watched the Arnold Schwarzenegger documentary, and I was like inspired by it. It said Arnold just couldn't do a bunch of stuff because of his accent and all this stuff. And he just kept doing stuff and he just kept bombing it, right? He just kept rocking it. When you watch his story, it's like one of those like overcomer stories. And I've been watching, when a person sees their self, it's usually inward, outwardly, right? And that's all they can see about themselves. It's who they are from the inside. They have. I gotta get the desk thing out so I can put my coffee on it. So I made me a coffee. I can get a. I'm thinking all day, right, about this video because, see, all my life it's been that, right? That Arnold Schwarzenegger story. You can't do this because of that, and all these limiting beliefs have been plugging in. So then I watched another video, right, about chosen ones, right? And they tell you all this story, hype up your ego, try to make you feel special. It's like, oh my goodness. But there's something to it, right? So I was like, yeah, man, these like chosen one ideologies are kind of empowering for people who just are rejected everywhere. You go into school, right? You try to get along, and everybody's like, they're trying to get to know you, but by the time they get to know you, they've already decided they don't like you. So you're still there, and you're in the environment, and these people still don't like you. And you're like, you're doing everything for them, right? You fixing their stuff, and I still don't like you. It's like you're saying please and thank you, and you're doing all these things that you would think people would like, right? Telling the truth, you're being honest, being your authentic self. You think that they would embrace that, but no, it's not like that at all. It's like society wants you to normalize. They want you to conform. Like they self-govern, self-police, like a tyranny. And you're like, wow, when I went through the COVID thing, it was probably like one of the, well, this has been normal for me to have this, right? But the COVID thing was just another like step up. Okay, so I get this new employer, right? And there, and they haven't started enforcing COVID testing yet. But all the employees like, hey, did you get a COVID test? And I was like, no. You didn't get a COVID test? I go, why would I get a COVID test? Well, because you want to protect me. And I was like, protect you? What about me? Can I protect me? Oh, man, that's not right. That's not right. Can I protect me? I'm not interested in that. I don't even know what that's going to do to me. I'm on that spot. Like, this thing hasn't even been tested. Has it been through trials to determine what the long-term effects are? When you get this, do you know anything about it? Like, no, but you got to get it. They say you got to get it. And I was like, I don't think so, bro. So this went on for about 2-3 months, right? People asking, and finally I was like, bro, I don't have to get a COVID test. I already put my documents in. I told them it's against my religious belief to do this. And they're like, what? You don't have to COVID test? I go, no. Besides, why would I? My nose is running a little bit. The seasonal allergies are kicking in. Anyway, why would I just get COVID tested because they say get COVID? Or you say get COVID? Why would I do that? I would think for me. How about that? And they're like, oh, come on, Richard. You know that ain't right. You should be looking out for the group. I'm like, wow. I am looking out for the group. I'm letting you know I didn't do it and why I didn't do it. How I went about not having it imposed on me. But you don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear you say no thank you to the establishment. They want to just comply. They want to just conform right away because everybody's doing it. And so I was looking at this chosen one stuff, right? And it was, again, back at the ego. So I was like, dang, man, that thing's puffing up my ego. I don't want that. But there is something I do want. I want this bad too, right? I'm going after this. I want what God has for me. I want to do something uniquely profound, telling stories and reminding people how they ought to consider critical thinking a little bit. Maybe do a search on it. Critical thinking. How to think for yourself. And to not let society govern your ideas and quench your fire. That thing is right there is quenching your fire. It's like, it will make a man become not a man. He'll be something else. Still be male, right? He'll still have the XY chromosome, but he won't have that fire. It's like taking the hunt out of the lion. And that's demasculating men at such the level that men will just comply, right? They'll just, woman getting raped on the bus. They'll just stand there and watch. They won't do nothing about it. They might even go worse, break out their camera and record the thing and upload it on their channel. They'll take it as an opportunity to boost their views. Crazy stuff like that's going on, right? Like the male thinking is no longer, it's becoming less honorable. So that's what they're teaching us, right? Become less honorable. And I'm like, nah, bro. That ain't happening. We men ain't doing that. We're standing up for justice, right? So the election starts coming up and self-thinking again, back on the table. Who are you going to vote for? Or I remember when they were first talking about voting for Trump back in 2016, I guess. Before the election. Yeah, if you vote for Trump, you're a racist. And I'm white. So it's like, I'm automatically a racist because I make a choice to vote for one guy or another guy. And you don't even know why I'm doing it. You're voting for Trump, you're a racist, automatically, just a racist. And I'm like, man, how are these people letting the narrative control them so much to say such trash? How are they doing that? Why are these men allowing, and they're not thinking. Come on, guys. I ain't that much, right? I get it, right? I'm just small fish in a big pond. But over the years, I've been growing, man. I've been growing. I don't even know what type of fish I am. I'm in this pond. I don't know what type of fish I am, but I've survived. I've survived gunshots. I tell you this story about what happened to me back in the day. Woo! And I will one day tell that story. But first I want to see if I tell that story, it's going to be under these conditions that people actually want to hear it. I just want to tell that because it's a powerful story. So I decided, right? I've been looking at Eric Thomas. I've been looking at Les Brown, Anthony Robbins, and a lot of Robert Kiyosaki, all these guys for years, right? I've been checking out their style, and like Robert Kiyosaki's style, he talks about, getting rich with debt. And I'm like, wow, bro. I don't have any respect for that, right? You're in debt. The Bible says the debtor's slave to the lender. Now, yeah, you got a lot of money, but your debt identifies your slaveness or your slavery. It identifies that. It points that out. You're a slave. Yeah, maybe you don't go to an employer every day. Granted, that's a freedom, right? That is a freedom, but it's not the freedom. There's something that is a higher calling than just having cash in the bank. It's called debt or freedom from debt. You owe no man anything. This is where the Bible's wisdom is at. It's to owe no man anything. But to God, owe everything. That's where I want to be, right? I want to be that I owe God everything. Everything about me, I'm in debt to God because think about salvation. What a great gift. How that a man would die for his friend and in that bring about salvation for all mankind. He died for his enemies. I was an enemy to God. Think about that. I was an enemy to God. And he died for me. How much he loved me. Salvation's personal, man. It's personal. It's God did it for me. He went on the cross and died for me. Personally. Canceling all my debt to sin. Canceling it. Now that's the kind of canceling you want. I didn't have any control over my sin. I still am stumbling through some areas of my life that I find myself sinning, right? Falling short. They're not nothing big or bad, but they're like, think about it. I was on the freeway yesterday, and if you've listened to my videos, you already know the hand of God is working on the freeway, and I see it. So this guy, he's like driving he's on the freeway driving all slow, so I'm trying to navigate around him so I can get over and get in the lane and just pass him, going like 60 miles an hour, 55 miles an hour, right? And anyway, so I finally get around him, and I go up and I get in front of him and I pass him. Well, he switches lanes, comes up next to me, starts honking at me. It flips me off. And like I get sparked, right? I'm like, oh, what? So I drive up to him, I honk the horn, like, right? So I'm like, what's that about? You know, you're the one all driving like an idiot, and you're honking at me, flipping me off because I passed you up. You're a danger to me, man. You get in the way of me getting through, and you're endangering me. So I was like, oh man, I don't know, that part of you that's like the thing you're working on, right? The thing you're working on is like, it's back to you working on it again. Anyway, so the hand of God is always trying us, right? Now it was a trial. I fell short again. I'm like asking God, what do I do about that when people are acting like that? Do I just go like this, just put the blinders on, just act like they're not there, and then that didn't happen, and just, because then I kind of feel like I'm not manning up. I'm like, hey bro, what's up? Why are you treating people like that? You know, it ain't right. You know, you're the one in the wrong, and you try to flip me off. And then when I drove up to him and honked the horn at him, he's like, I'm like, come on, bro. You don't honk at people and flip them off. And then when they come and say, why are you flipping me off? Get all like, oh, like now he's like, now I'm in the wrong, right? And it's like, just asking. So I went too far, right? Either way, I went too far. Where's the boundary? Where is the place where I'm like, okay, just don't address it, right? Don't address it. Like, I don't even know if that's right. So those are challenges, right? I don't always make the right choice in those instances all the time. So I get it, right? I get it. Like I'm falling short. This is why I have the Messiah as my savior, right? People think you're a Christian, you're supposed to be all good and upstanding and righteous, and it's like, no, that's completely wrong. Oh, excuse me. I don't know who taught you that. Even when you come to Jesus, you're still going to fall short. That's why you come to him. Because you know that's in your nature to do that. It's fighting against that. That's the good fight, is to like decide, I'm not, okay, today I'm gonna work on not being that guy. I'm gonna work on that. Today I'm gonna work on that guy. So I was telling you about Les Brown and Eric Thomas and Tony Robbins in there. I decided that I would be the greatest storyteller ever. And I was like, I don't know, 6 years old. That was my goal. And I had forgotten about it. You know, over the years, that was my plan. I was getting stories together. And over the years, I had forgotten about it. But I was building stories anyway. I was reading all these stories. And I didn't even realize that I had forgotten that, right? But I was still building the stories. Still looking for the goal to be the greatest storyteller ever. My dad used to tell these stories. And I'd be like, Dad? I don't know, inside myself, I'd be like, how does my dad know all these stories? I had no idea, right? I was a little kid. How do you get all these stories? Like, you just make them up, or you read them, or where do they come from? So, and the reason why I say that, because I'm putting the trial on myself, right? Putting the challenge out. Can you make this happen? Well, I don't think I can, but so I went to God, right? Like, God, I started a YouTube channel like in 2010. And I was so worried about what people thought about it when I was doing it that I quit. I just like, yeah. And even though I was actually I had really good ideas, and the videos that I was putting together, they were decent, right? They were decent, but I was so insecure, I couldn't stumble through the growth process of getting through that to improve. Anyway, so that was back then, right? So over the last like 2 years, I just, man, I need to start that YouTube channel. So back in 22, I was like, all right, I'm gonna do it again. So I sat down at the table. I started doing videos. I was like doing these bunk videos again. I was like, man, I kept looking. I was like, man, you suck. He just kept telling me, you suck, man. And I was like, oh, man, you do suck. That's true. But you're not going to suck forever. If you keep doing this, you're not going to suck forever. So I listened to the Arnold Schwarzenegger and was like, hey, 1 rep at a time. Just 1 rep. Just do the 1 rep. Do it right. And just remember, each rep you do is working on that. Like, oh, man, that's right, man. 1 video at a time. No matter how, maybe the rep wasn't that great, right? Nobody looked at it. Nobody cared about it, right? Maybe it's a dope video. It's just that nobody's seen it. Nobody gave it a second chance. They didn't even click on it. So I'm like, oh, there's that, that God has to do it. That's the first thing. If God moves on people to listen to my stories, these guys are going to be calling me up. They're going to be wanting to make offers, right? Man, your stories are making me shiver. Like, I'm thinking about this. They're making me shiver. So I was talking to this guy at work, well, this one particular time, right? And I'm telling him a story. Just a short story, because he's only got like 2 minutes, right? He's like, oh, I only got 2 minutes today, man. So tell me real quick. And I'm like, okay. So I start telling him the story, right? And he's like, oh my God, you just made me shiver. And I was like, what? And this has been happening a lot recently, right? I've been telling stories and people have been having that effect. And it's like, there's something to that. I wonder what that is. I can't put my finger on what that means. But I do remember this. Back in the day, people used to say that they could feel the music. And I was like, what do you mean by feel the music? And then one day I was listening to this song, and my whole inner person began to like have that shiver. I was like, oh, that's feeling the music. I got it. So there's not a lot of people that have that. The ability to make you feel the music. Like, there's good music, but that's a whole different level of feeling it, right? Like, your body starts to, like, it crawls, like your blood begins to crawl inside you. And explain this to people and to share this with people that never even heard of this, don't even know what that means. Well, number one, they're alienated, right? Because they haven't listened yet. So you tell them the story, they don't listen, so they just still don't know. They're still in ignorance. This coffee's good. I make this vanilla nut. I'll tell you where I get it from, but then I might be advertising for them. So, but this coffee is pretty tasty. Just sipping on it just to enjoy it a little bit while I tell this story. So we're going back to the idea, right, of how Arnold Schwarzenegger persevered. This is the idea, the perseverance. So my level of perseverance starts out, as a child, right? I want to be the greatest storyteller ever. I don't even know what that means, but I'm going to do it because I got no stories. Now that I got stories, and there's new stories always surfacing that you can tell, that things that happen that are interesting. COVID, that's a great story. How one could persevere the peer pressure of COVID vaccination. That was a hard time. They liken that vaccination to like taking the mark of the beast, right? People are like, oh, if you take the COVID test, it's like taking the mark of the beast. Can you say no? I was like, I just thought that was funny, right? Mark of the beast? I don't think so, but okay, let's just go there and say that was the case, right? How many people, how many people sold out to peer pressure? Just that, peer pressure. And just got the COVID test and COVID vaccine simply because everybody told them to. Come on, man. There should have been a big group of men saying, nah, they should have been flying the flag with the middle finger on it. To people who try to push you into that. So I listened to The Rock, right? And he gives a little bit of a motivational talk, right? And I thought he said this one, I thought it was really dope, right? So I don't know how I remembered it, but I remembered it. He says, it's nice to be important, because he's The Rock, right? It's nice to be important. Of course, you're The Rock. It's nice to be important. You're The Rock. You're making all this money. That's important. That's nice. But he says, but it's more important to be nice. I'm like, yeah. And it's an easy saying, right? It's not that deep. But because when you hear it coming from The Rock, how important he thinks it is to be nice, you're like, oh man, wow, that is good. If he's really doing it, right? Like, I don't know the guy, but to think about a guy like The Rock being nice to people, fans, and people that come up that are like nobodies wanting his autograph. Oh yeah, hi, how you doing? I'm Dwayne, right? I'm Dwayne. How you doing? Oh yeah, how you doing, Dwayne? That would be amazing for fans to experience that with The Rock, right? You think that these people that are well known for doing great things are living a life of humility around the people that actually paid for them to get there, their fans, and give them a minute to like shake their hand, sometimes give them a hug, I don't know. But that kind of kindness, man, that goes a long way. That says a lot about, if he's doing that, right? I would say a lot about him. But he said this too. This is the one, right? That he's like, and every once in a while, you got to tell him to off. I'm like, yeah, you do. That's true. Because you get all these people trying to tell you, oh, why don't you get the COVID vaccine? What's wrong with you? What, do you think you're special? And I'm like, it's right there, right? You get the big middle finger, bro. You're telling me what to do. I'm a man. I get the right to say yes or no to what I do, what I put in my body. I'm getting drug tested for marijuana, but you want to put this poisonous, I don't even know what it is. I call it poisonous because I don't know what it is, right? I have no idea. So I'm putting something foreign in my body. And the Bible says not to do that. Anyway, so I thought that comment from The Rock was kind of dope. I thought since we're having this conversation, I thought I'd share that. So one day I'll be in a place, right? I say this right like this. One day I'll be in a place, and I'm not saying this out of pride. I say this out of humility because, see, I think God is trying me right now. I'm in a trial period to see if I'm willing to put in the work, to put out these bunk videos, and just allow the shame, right, of rejection. Like, oh, that video sucked. They didn't get no views. Yeah, so what? So what? I'm not worried about that. What I'm worried about is putting in the work so that I do what God called me to do. Persevere, right? Persevere. Arnold put out some bunk movies. Yeah, I'm sure he put up some bunk reps. I'm sure when he was in the gym, he dropped some weights. I don't know where his failures were, but he didn't let those observations of the others, like, they dropped the weights. He couldn't lift that. He didn't let that stop him. Just, all right, put the weights back on, lighten it up, whatever. Just start hitting the stacks again. So I'm like, man, he had so much going against him to become. And the only reason I say the Arnold one is because I think it's a great story, but there's a greater story to be told. And think about this. The Messiah comes, and all his countrymen who are already expecting his arrival reject him. He's going around. He ain't trying to prove anything to anybody, right? He ain't trying to earn anybody's approval. He ain't trying to prove anything to anybody. He's just being himself. He's just doing what he came to do. And he's failing all over the place because the people are challenging him, and he's like having to answer their stupid questions that are trying to always trap him. They're like trying to set him up for failure. They ain't trying to embrace him. They ain't trying to build him up. They ain't even trying to understand him. They're just trying to trap him all the time, especially the religious leaders, the ones that should know. They should have known. When he stood up there and he said, in your ears today, this scripture has been fulfilled, they should have been like, what do you mean by that? Help us to understand what you mean by that. We don't know what that means. Help us. And then he might have been able to expound to them what that meant. Not them, man. They were like, man, you need to get COVID vaccination, bro. Stone that guy. He don't want to get vaccinated. He ain't looking out for us. Something like that. That's kind of like the feeling I get that he got that. Like, the pure, like, condemnation. Like, you can't say that, blasphemer. And they don't even know. They have no idea what he meant by that. They just judged him. And it's okay to judge, but they didn't just judge. They condemned that guy. They like want to stone him. There's a different level between judging and condemning, right? Like, people say, judge. The Bible says, judge not, lest you be judged. Like, yeah, it does say that. But it also says, consider the matter too. So you don't just let things just go on. Oh, I can't say. You can't call the police. That guy's raping the girl on the street. You can't call the police. You can't make that judgment. Really? The Bible says that? I don't think so. So I like to think about it. I like to spend some time. Look, I'm almost a half hour on this. Les, I'm coming. Eric, I'm coming. My storytelling's going to be because God has called it, right? God has, do these, Richard. Do these. It was funny because I listened to Eric Thomas tell his story when he had a conversation with Les Brown. And he says to Les Brown, something like this, right? I don't know exactly. I'm going to be the greatest. And Les Brown is like, what? I won't ever say that again. You are the greatest. You're the greatest, man. And Eric Thomas didn't realize that he was speaking out of limiting beliefs. And Les had to correct him on that and let him know that, no, bro, you don't say that. You say, I am the greatest. And it's not about being egotistical. It's not about self-righteousness. It's about not allowing limiting beliefs to stop you from becoming the greatest, because you are the greatest. Everyone in their capacity is the greatest that they can be in themselves for whatever it is that they're doing. And if you don't believe you're the greatest, how's anybody else going to believe it? Muhammad Ali was saying that. All the greats that became great, they weren't great until they told themselves they were the greatest. Then they became the greatest. Guess what? Everybody believed it then. But they didn't believe in the beginning. Like, you're just Richard, man. You're just one of us. Arcad, right? You're just one of us. Jesus, you're just one of us. Like, no, bro. Jesus ain't just one of us. He ain't just one of us. He's the top. They're the best, right? The greatest is the Messiah, right? He's done the greatest work. There's no work greater than his work. Like, we do great work, and we're the greatest at doing what we do. What he called us to do, right? Be the greatest version of yourself that he called you to be. Be the greatest at that. I go to my employer, I pick up trash. I dump trash cans. Very humble job, right? Excuse me. But I love that. See, I work in these parking lots, and there's these patients that come in, they're like, they need help getting where they need to go. And I can help them. Such a blessing. It's like my purpose to help these people. And I'm not saying that to brag. What I'm saying is that I feel called to that. Picking up trash. And believe me, I get treated with a level of humility from the nurses and them doctors that just, like, I'm not there to look away, like that, oh, there's the trash guy. Like, you always get that. It's humiliating to a certain degree, right? But I'm like, I'm here for that. I'm here for that humility. I look at them, I say good morning to them. I say, good morning. And they do that. I say, good morning. So I had to learn something through that, though. Because, see, I'd say it to the women, and then I started thinking, wait a minute, I might look like a creep. I better stop that. So I had to stop that. Not because I don't want to, but I don't want to make them feel a certain way. But the men, good morning. Good morning. I'll stop them for 10 seconds, right? The 10-second rule is usually on the men now. I did it to a couple women. Again, it was that. Like, wait a minute. You might look like a creep, man, like you're coming on to them. And I wasn't doing that at all. But I had to be aware of that, man. I got to protect myself from looking a certain way and being in a certain situation. In most traditions, religious traditions, men aren't really supposed to be talking to women anyway. And so maybe I was in error and I had to learn from that and grow through that. That's my grow through from Eric Thomas. And I did it. I grew from that. I had to go through it, though. I had to do it a couple of times and realize, ooh, that's not too good. Maybe I should. So I see myself from the third person. I was like, oh, I looked at me and I was like, okay, there's you doing that. There's that person. Look at their expression. Is that right? I was like, they didn't, yeah. So I stumbled in that, right? I was like, trying to figure that out. I could see that in my mind unfolding. I could watch it. I could like replay the thing. I don't know if other people have that, but think about that. When you have, well, if you care about your self-development, right, you're going to have to see some of your errors. And the only way you can really see them is to get outside the situation and watch what you did. So I've been doing videos for probably, I don't know, since I was a little kid, right? Did breakdancing videos, all these videos, bike videos, all these videos since I was a little kid. My mom bought a VHS camera. She thought it was cool to have one. So we used it all the time doing little goofy things. We'd record our stuff, doing tricks and stuff like that. I lost a lot of the tapes. I'd bring them up and I'd put them on. But 40 years ago when I was a kid riding bikes and doing skateboard tricks and all that stuff would have been dope, man. I could have put some dope videos on of bike tricks and so we didn't have the internet. So we couldn't do all that. We didn't have smartphones back then. We didn't have phones we could film and then upload and be on, because I've seen some breakdancers that were just like, wow. Some rappers, wow. They were just imagine putting that on today. Get a lot of views. And people were talented. So I've seen some talented people and videotaped a lot of talent. And so that's all gone in the past, right? But you could take the dog out of the fight, but you can't take the fight out of the dog, right? They can fire the employee, but they can't take away his skills. He walks away with all them skills. Yeah, you can replace anybody. Everybody's replaceable, right? Yeah, you can put somebody in that spot. But you might not have the quality person that person was and fill those shoes. It's not that easy. Yeah, you can put someone in the position to show up every day. That's easy. And that's all day, right? But some people, what they bring is Joseph, right? Think about Joseph. Joseph has a dream, right? He already knows where he's going. He don't know how he's getting there. He don't know the path he's getting. He doesn't know he's getting ready to go through. He tells his brothers the story, his dream, right? He doesn't know they're going to end up selling him into slavery because of it. Like he's setting himself up for failure, but ultimately success in a sense, because had he not told the story, maybe they wouldn't have been jealous enough to throw him in the pit to begin with, to get the suffering started. So Joseph gets thrown in a pit, down in the well. His brother's up there like, what are we gonna do with this guy? Let's kill him. Imagine him in the pit and them talking about that. Let's just kill this guy, man. We'll just tear up his stuff. We'll put blood all in the jacket. We'll take it to dad and we'll say, he must have died on the way. We found his jacket. So they're telling stories to each other like this, and he's down in the pit like, oh my God, are they gonna kill me? I have this dream. I gotta fulfill this dream, but am I gonna make it through this? And then all of a sudden they drag him up out of the pit. He's like, oh, what's gonna happen now? I mean, think about his mindset. So they're like, come on, let's go. And they gaffle him up, take him over to the slave traders and sell him. And instead of killing the guy, they sold him to slavery. So he goes off into slavery, right? He don't know what this means, like going to slavery. My brother's selling me this. I mean, his mindset must have been like, that guy, talk about perseverance, right? Then the perseverance is like starting to begin, right? This trial on perseverance. Can he make it through this? Will he make it through this? So he goes into slavery, right? His vision of himself is still, my brothers are going to come along. They're going to bow down. They're, and maybe not exactly his brothers, right? Because it was actually their sheaves that bowed down, I think is what it was. So maybe it was their money or their possessions would bow down. They would be inferior to his. They would be subjected to his money. Maybe their money was broke, right? It was bent over. That means their money was broke. Who knows what that means exactly? So anyway, he's in slavery. I think this story of Joseph, this part is way impressive. So he shows up as a slave, and everything around the property is like decaying, right? They're slaves. Nobody's doing above and beyond. They're like trying to slide by and trying to get away with doing nothing. They're slaves, right? So they're not motivated. They got no motivation. So Joseph comes around. He doesn't even care about the money. He ain't interested in that. He gets the opportunity to start doing stuff. He ain't in the pit. He's got a place to sleep. He's got food on the table. And he's just humbled by the opportunity to be where he's at. He starts doing stuff, right? He starts getting busy on this on the stuff around the property and stuff, right? And the master is like, wow. Like, a year later, he's like, wow, we're making money. We got harvests coming in like crazy. Doesn't know why. He has no idea what's going on, right? The master doesn't. And believe me, I'm kind of paraphrasing the ideology of this story so you could kind of consider what's going on with Joseph in a sense, right? It's not about perfect, it's about the story, right? Listen to the story. So Joseph continues doing what he's doing, right? Making things happen. The people around him, like his vibration, like his presence, his energy was changing everybody. He didn't even talk to people. He just go out and do his work and do his thing. They're like, man, that stuff looks dope. The other guys were like, you did that? Man. It took them like 1/3 the time that they were spending all day doing nothing and their stuff was looking like crap. It was like they had no like self-worth at that time, right? They're slaves. They got no self-worth. But he taught them self-worth. Doesn't matter if you're a slave, man. You can still enjoy your life, enjoy what you do, make stuff look good, and feel good about it. Like he taught that, right? He didn't have to say the stuff. He didn't have to say it. He didn't have to sit down and give him a lesson. He just did it. He just got out there and got after it. A couple years later, the whole place, the outside, the inside, the stuff is looking tight and cleaned up and tidy, and it's taking less time. The efficiency level is just like, it just like elevated, right? In the space of like 2-3 years, the efficiency level of the house care, people coming in to see the dudes for dinner and stuff like, wow, who's doing your gardening? Oh, I got this new slave. He kind of came in here, started noticing Joseph, right? He started recognizing Joseph's input since Joseph came, what had it started happening? And then his wife starts to notice Joseph, right? Joseph was invisible. But then after a couple of years, Joseph's like physique was already like kind of tight. But by the time he had been doing all these chores and lifting all this weight and moving all this stuff, his physique was looking tight, right? So the wife was like, my boy's looking pretty good over there. So she tried to get after him, right? And he had to deal with that perseverance of having loyalty to the master and letting him know that, hey, you've put me over your whole house. Because at one point, Joseph had elevated to like house manager, right? He managed everybody. He's getting everything started and taken care of. He's giving everybody tasks. He's delegating. He's holding all the responsibilities. He's the manager of all the other slaves. They're all coming to Joseph for tasks. And they're all encouraged because they're talking to Joseph. And hearing him talk was like, wow, that's Joseph. Just having a moment with Joseph to give me some inspiration. I'll go out for the rest of the day and work like crazy. That kind of inspiration. It was just like, it's maddening to think about. I don't know if anybody's ever told you this about Joseph, what it's like to be in the presence of somebody like Joseph. Because see, Joseph was a praying man. He was seeking the Lord regularly. Even though he's in the condition he was, he embraced it as a call of God that was going to take him to where his dream was going to get fulfilled. He was there for a purpose and a reason. So the wife got after him, tried to make him do stuff, and then he said no thank you. So he tried to take off because she tried to grab up on him, and then she tears his clothes off, and he bails out because he don't want. She's calling for the other house security or whatever, that Joseph tried to like do something. And then so the husband comes home and she's like, oh, you should have seen Joseph. He tried to do this and that. She put all this blame and all these lies on Joseph. And the dude knew that Joseph wasn't like that. Joseph already proved himself. But because of his wife's honor, he had to throw him in a jail. He had to toss him in a jail. Hasn't even been proven guilty. He's in jail. So Joseph is in jail waiting for his trial and trying to get, free. So he's in there doing his thing, getting the place straight, right? The whole jail thing is like the same thing as the slave spot. He shows up at the slave spot, he starts doing stuff, and the whole place is popping. Now he's in jail, and it's still Joseph, right? So they replaced Joseph, right? You can replace, everybody's replaceable. But they couldn't take what Joseph had in him, out of him, right? So he took that with him. So he's there doing his thing still. Within 2 or 3 years, he's the top prisoner, right? Giving all the delegations, all the prisoners doing work around the prison, cleaning stuff up, taking care of stuff. Everybody's doing their purpose. Then a couple of the guys are like, man, I'm having these problems, man. I had this dream last night. And tells him the dream. He's like, oh, okay, well, this is what that dream means. Because he was already a dream interpreter. This is what that dream means. So the other guy comes on, you interpret dreams, man? Well, I had this dream too. They want to know about their dreams because these guys, a lot of people are into the dream thing. And he's like, gives him his dream interpretation. And he tells them, hey, you guys, listen. Because he knew one of them was getting out, right? He told him, you're going to get out and you go back to service. You're going to die. In 3 days, you're going to die. So 3 days later, the dude dies, right? And the other dude's getting out, watches that happen. Like, oh, it's 3 days later. That guy died, just like Joseph said. So then that guy, he gets out right after that, and he goes back to serving the Pharaoh, right? He's a cupbearer. And he was accused of something, so he's in jail, and they found out that he wasn't guilty, so he went back to cupbearing. Well, years had went by, and finally Pharaoh's like, wakes up, he's like, I got this dream. It's bothering me. And I think it was a repetitious type of dream where he was having it a couple days in a row or something like that. It meant something. He didn't know what to do. So all the astrologers brought him in. Oh, well, this and that. And they're trying to scam him. And he's like, no. You need to tell me the dream and the interpretation. Something like that, right? So anyway, nobody could do it. Nobody could answer the call. All these soothsayers and these astrologers and all these spiritualists and all these people that are, operating under these demonic spirits kind of thing. So the cupbearer goes, you know what? There was a guy in prison. He could interpret dreams. He told me that I'd be getting out and coming back to my job. Everything he said happened. The other guy, he interpreted his dream too. Everything he said about that guy, it happened. Pharaoh's, what? Really? Call that guy in, right? So they go get Joseph out of prison. Joseph, now you're talking probably about 15 years from the time he's thrown in the pit to this day, right? Maybe 15 years. It's a pretty long period of time of perseverance. You got to consider this. This perseverance that Joseph is going through and learning is setting him up. Sometimes hearing from God no right now is not no. It's preparation for the blessing. He's preparing the blessing, but he's preparing you for the blessing. Because if you're not prepared for the blessing, you get it, you might lose it, and you might mess it all up. So the preparation for you to get ready for the blessing is important. So he's getting prepared for this, right? So Joseph shows up. He has no idea. So they take him in, right? You got to have etiquette. When you walk in the king's presence, you don't show up in prison clothes. You don't walk in there all like scrubby and So they took him in, they washed him all up, they got him all. Remember, he's pretty yoked by now. He's in jail. He's probably doing push-ups and doing what all jail guys do. We all, that are jail guys, push-ups, right? Burpees. Everybody does burpees in their cell. Or they get on the yard. Depends, right? But everybody's trying to get to work on because you might have to get in a fight with somebody. Because you're around criminals, right? You got to be able to defend yourself. Anyway, so he's in the presence of Pharaoh. Pharaoh's like, okay, well, I had this dream. Joseph gives him the whole interpretation, right? The 7 years of fat cows and 7 years of lean cows. He tells him that 7 years, you're going to have a lot of abundance. And then the next 7 years, that 7 years is going to eat up all that abundance and still be scarce. You're going to have scarcity big time. So you need to hire somebody that knows how to manage resources and put this 30%, I think it's 30%, put 30% of it away, store it. Because after that first 7 years, when this drought comes, you're going to be selling to all the other nations. This nation is going to get rich. He gave them the whole blueprint, right? Of emergency fund. First emergency fund ever that I can think of, I can remember, was Joseph teaching the emergency fund. There's an emergency coming. We know it. You had the dream. Here's the interpretation. So he's like, so you need to hire somebody. You need to put somebody in a position to manage this and make sure that it gets stored correctly, because you don't want to store all this 30% of goods or resources and they just go bad. So they got to be stored a specific way so that they can, it's like money, right? It holds value. The stuff has got to hold value for 7 years. You're storing stuff up for 7 years. So in 7 years from now, that stuff has still got to be usable. So the storage is really important, right? So it gives them this whole scenario of what could happen. Pharaoh puts him in charge, right? Pharaoh says, you know what? Okay, you're the guy. You're going to do it. And Joseph's like, okay, sure. You will be ranked number 2. The only person that will be above you is me. What the king says, right? So he's got authority under the king, the Pharaoh. He went from jail with no hope from an outside viewer, right, to second in command in a day, right? In a day. It was like that. It seems like that, right? We look at it, all of a sudden he's in charge. Nobody knows who Joseph is. These people that are around, like, who's this guy? Coming around telling everybody what to do. We don't even know who this guy is. He's not even Egyptian. He's not even one of them. He's going around telling them what to do, giving them all the direction. And Joseph was very skilled in communicating. His demeanor was like people just were moved to want to do what they're called to do when they're around that guy. Joseph was just a profound individual. Anybody that's ever read this story that hasn't got this out of it yet, hopefully you get this out of it, because when I got this, I was like, wow. When I go to work, I want to be Joseph. I've been working on the Joseph mindset for like 3 years, maybe 4, but like 3 years. I'm going to come into wherever I go, I'm going to be that. Because I got respect for what the Bible says and how it taught the Joseph story. Why not try to embody it? I like that. I like that idea, what Joseph did. So Joseph's in charge of resource management. This is like, I hope you're getting something out of this. Anyway, the brothers, right? Talking about the brothers to begin with, right? That story is... So anyway, I'm going to leave it right there, because I could tell this story. I could go on for another couple hours. But I want to leave you right there in suspense. Maybe you probably didn't get this far. That's okay. I'm dropping this one anyway, because I'm doing what God called me to do. I'm going to persevere through these bunk videos, and I'm going to get in that spot that God called me to. I'm going to preach salvation through the Messiah. I'm going to preach the riches of the kingdom of God, how to enter in, and how to access the abundance. Hallelujah.